Okay, so we like to begin by introducing ourselves. I am Miss Valerie, and
Roshi.
yes, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we are just going to briefly go over the scope and sequence of our classroom, which is basically the curriculum. So we're going to walk around the room and we're just going to briefly go over kind of what the students are going to be doing. And then at the end, we will make some final comments about some things that your students will be working on when they're in the classroom. So let's start with the science area. And with the science area, quite a few of the students have shown a lot of interest in doing the different parts of the animals and the birds. Quite a few of the parents have probably seen something similar to the birds. And we have...
It extends on to comprehension and understanding of the physical parts and learning some scientific names of the things, the animals they are doing. So right now they're only tracing, and it seems like they're just coloring and bringing papers home or making books, but this will extend on to some comprehension work also.
Okay, so that's where their interest is right now, is quite a few of the animals. And then, for instance, today we had a discussion, because it was in the news, about the different phases of the moon. So tomorrow, some of them may end up working on this beautiful work that we have. So with the science, we kind of go by the interests of the kids, and then we incorporate them into some of the different areas. And this is our shelf that has quite a few of the experiments that you are able to see in the videos that either Miss Valerie or Miss Roshi presented. So this area is quite a bit of the physical sciences, talking about the different topics that you may have seen while you were watching them in the video, like the solid, liquid, and gas, and centrifugal force. So those might be some different words that you might be hearing your student talk about. We have the area of geography, and this area
froze up.
What?
And you're on mute. There. Also, Miss Valerie, I know that it's hard, but you might have to flip the phone, you know, the version or the vid or how it's showing you guys, and flip it when you show close up to a work. The work's too far away for us to see it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys, for your patience. This is our first time with the elementary doing the Zoom, so.
Okay, so we will zoom in a little bit. So with the solid, liquid, and gas, we have this for a solid. It's a hard doorstop. The liquid is just a container of water. Then for the gas, they were able to spray a little bit of perfume. That way they can enjoy the smell as well as noticing that it is a gas. And then this is one that they absolutely loved. They got to put the scarf on a table, and they got to be a magician to see if they can get the can to stay on the table. And so that's been a pretty popular one, to see how many people could do that. Then we have our geography area with our beautiful flags and the globes. So this area, we're kind of just like before, we're going by the interests of the students. Some of them have shown an interest in wanting to do quite a bit of animal research. So this work is animals of the world. And so they can go through and they can see what animals are in each of the different continents. And then our beautiful puzzle maps that so many of the students are punching them out, or they're tracing them and working on the different maps to learn the countries and the states. So that's something we do. And then this is a beautiful find that Miss Roshi and I found at the store. And it goes through and it has a beautiful replica of what people might have looked like in the different countries.
So the purpose of doing all the geography work is for them to, when they hear in the news or somebody's talking about a country, or I already know where it is, where it's located, learn about the culture, be able to tell about the clothing. Like the other day we were talking about, I don't know why we talked about Japan, about somebody said about some islands, and then one of the boys said Japan has islands. So then we talked about all of that and the clothing and the kimono and the slippers they wear, so that if they ever see somebody or meet somebody from Japan, can say, oh, I know this happened in your country, or I know where it's located, and be aware of outside of your own community. And a lot of the time, it's the geography work is sparked by their own interest.
Beautiful. And now, if we continue, we will approach the history area. And today, one of the students came up and they were talking to me about Donald Trump. So Miss Roshi tells me we had these beautiful cards and we just happened to have a picture of Donald Trump. And then on the back, there's some information that they can research about that president. And so we have just about all of the presidents. We have a couple of them that have been misplaced, but we have a majority of them in here, or they are more than willing to do the research to find out what who the presidents are. And that was sparked by the students' interest quite a bit with the history, as well as a lot of the great lessons that you'll be seeing as we present them in class, and then they will be uploaded onto YouTube or wherever they would like to stay. So this is the history part.
So guys, let's stop for just a second. Let me ask a couple questions. So tell me a little bit, and tell the parents, I guess, a little bit about, I know that it's child-led in elementary. And so just like that, you're talking about something, or like elections are right now. And so you might be talking about, the presidential candidates, things like that. But when there's not maybe a spark of something, or there's not something going on, how do you start the year, right? You have these great lessons. So how do you start? Because everyone still needs, we still have a flow, right, of how the great lessons go. I'd love to, and I'm sure the parents would kind of love to hear about how, beyond following the child, how also do we just get into these objectives and things that we provide for them every day?
So we have an outline that we follow, and we encourage the children to come up with their topics based on the outline. And if Miss Valerie will show, this would be like our history outline.
And so,
those
okay.
lessons that we would be presenting.
And is that something that the parents could get a copy of if they wanted it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, we can make a copy available.
You are more than welcome to walk in the classroom and at drop off, pick up, look at it also and read it. And if you have further questions, you are more than welcome to ask, but you may have a copy of it as well.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Sharon?
Well, was one I wanted to ask right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have some different materials that we're trying to add to the room, and we're trying to incorporate, and some of you have probably seen more sewing projects. Some of you have probably seen possibly a pillow that they've tried sewing, or that they're working on these trays. Actually, one of them is right here, where we would draw a picture on a styrofoam tray, and they're working on their fine motor. Oh, the fine motor, so that way they can work on going up and down, and they can work on using this beautiful needle that can be very tricky. So we start out with a plastic one and move to the metal one. That way they're being safe. And then they also get a beautiful creation that they can take home. And then we kind of go by, we have a beautiful sewing machine, and we have one parent that is very good at sewing. And I am working on, and Miss Roshi, having her come in and doing another demonstration on how to properly thread up the sewing machine and the bobbin. That is a little bit of a chore in itself. And then as we continue, this is the area where all the sewing stuff and practical life area is important, even in the elementary. After they get done doing some of their other work, sometimes the students just need to have a little bit of a break. And so Ms. Roshi and I have made some different practical life areas. We have some different painting, shoe polishing, egg crushing, which I found to be a very cool one. They have a beautiful pestle, and then they use this and they just crush up the eggs, and then we put the crushed up eggs into our plant for food. And the kids absolutely love doing that, and try doing that as much as possible. And then next is one of my
Oh,
pride
Valerie,
and joy.
hold on one
We
second.
have our geckos.
Miss Valerie and Miss
Yes.
Laroshi. So go back to the practical life. Most of the parents that are on tonight, their children have been in our early childhood program. And so they've seen practical life and they know what that encompasses at the EC level. But why would we have that at the elementary level? What is it about it that we would continue on practical life? And how do we scale that up to make it look different than what they had in the primary or early childhood classrooms?
So for the younger children, practical life is mostly for developing fine motor skills and associating it with things that you already have at home and to normalize yourself in the classroom. However, in the elementary, the practical life is there for them to extend on concentration, learn precision, also to stick with you, take the work, you have to follow the whole process and put it back. And also it's still work, but for them, they think of this as taking a break from their work, but mostly for concentration and precision.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so the gecko, we have two of them still. And this is just an extension of our science area, working on living and taking care of our environment and taking care of the animal. We still have two of them, and we try making it so that this is one of the jobs and that they're just taking responsibility for animals and making sure that they get water and food. And then beautiful pencil boxes, nicely labeled. Now we are approaching our beautiful language area with all of the different phonograms
That
your
Miss Sharon
students-
has very kindly purchased for us, which is ridiculously expensive, but thank you.
I'll just go,
Lots of new works this year.
yes. I'll just go briefly over an example. So the first part is a picture, and if you can see, it's a bat. Then
It comes with a word and
it comes with a word for them to match up. Although this isn't bat, they do have the bat. So then they're matching them up. So the older students, they can work on the cursive. And the younger students, after they match up the words, it's very, very important that they work on their spelling of the words with our beautiful movable alphabet, so that they're working on each individual letter, so that they get used to spelling each part of the word. Anything else?
So in the primary, early childhood, again, they do the movable alphabet a lot. That's basically for eye-hand coordination, for listening skills, for phonetically writing the words. But in elementary, again, it's amazing the difference of the children who use the movable alphabet a lot as opposed to the ones who don't. Their spelling is like unbelievable. So even the spelling list that they come home with, they are working on that with the movable alphabet here at school during the daytime.
And so just like before, the language work, we kind of go by where the kids are at. Each individual student will decide which group of letters they're needing to work on, and different material that we might have, like the uppercase and lowercase letters, just to give you an example. We still work on them, knowing the difference between the uppercase and lowercase. Something a little different in
Cursive.
they're doing the cursive with the Sanskrit, and you're also working on and then they also work on the phonograms. So that way, after they get done doing some of the work, they could also trace these with their hands to get the motion of each of the letters. And then we try making this area,
Closest so they can see.
and then right here is something brand new this year that a lot of them have been very interested in. It's alphabetizing. And it starts out very simple, and they just have to work on getting each of the words in alphabetical order. And there's only one word for each beginning letter. Then they advance to more challenging words. And this is when Miss Roshi and I hear quite a few kids saying that there's too many of one letter. So for example,
Moving to the order of the alphabet,
yeah, the order of the alphabet. Yeah. So you just keep going more and more advanced. So just like we would, each one of them is numbered so that they go in order, and they increase in difficulty, and then rhyming, and then we have it just the words, and then some of them, they still have the picture. So that way it's individualized by the student, and then the spelling of making the different parts of speech, lots of movable alphabet. And so we just kind of go through the different parts of grammar and language and try to individualize it the best we can for each of the students at their level. So we have a huge variety of different material, and this will be something that possibly you'll be getting pictures of when your students are doing the work as they advance. And something that the students have also shown a huge beauty in our classroom is the grammar boxes. And so for the grammar boxes, each color is a different part of speech. So we start out with red, which is a red circle, which is for a verb. So they would be working on knowing the verb, the article, the noun. So there is a progression on our shelf, and we have a poster so that the kids know exactly what order to do the different works in. So then they know that they're working with, it's in order on there as well. They work on the noun family, then the verb. And so they look at this and they know the exact progression. And then this is an example of what one of the students have done in the past, symbolizing each part of speech for each of the sentences.
So their
I
identity.
was gonna say, can you read us one of the sentences? and tell us, because we can't see that.
Okay, it says line a few lights. So they have a red circle, which is line for a verb. A is a small blue triangle, which is an article. And then they have the slightly bigger triangle for few, which is an adjective. And then they have the bigger black triangle, which is the noun for lights. And so this is something that they work up to, and the students actually have a beautiful ruler, which is clear, but they get to do, that has each of the shapes to increase their independence on doing the work. So that way we don't have to come over and help them draw any of the shapes. They have them in the ruler for them to draw them independently by themselves. And then for the students, we have 2 different formats to the same work, just depending on how the students want to work and depending on how many students are wanting to do the grammar. We have them with these beautiful boxes, different colors. And then we also have similar works in these clear drawers, but these are numbered and also put down like noun box 1. So if the noun box is busy on the top shelf, the bottom shelf, another student could be working on this, and it's just a slightly different format. It's a different way that does the same concept. So that way, if a student has already done the first set, we can move on to the second set to see if maybe if it was confusing or if it had too many things going on. So that's what the grammar and
We also have for advanced work for dictionary, looking up the word, learning to look up the word, the pronunciation, how to find the word. Like there's a boy who's now learning how to just look up the word in the dictionary, while another one is working on pronunciation, and yet another one who is trying to find the meanings of words. So there's different activities that they can all do. And because we are older ones are doing work like this, the younger ones, if they don't know to spell right away, tell me, I hear them talking to, let's get the dictionary out. They have no idea how to find the word, but they know they'll find it in the dictionary and they'll call me for help. So that's sparking interest in them. And then we have punctuation, different formats for that.
And then something that's kind of unique to our classroom, they get to use the actual animals in this beautiful barn to work on the parts of speech as well. So we have all of the different animals in the different colors on pieces of paper. So that way for the students that want something visually in their hands, they can find out that this is a horse, it's a noun, and then we can talk about it and say the horse is in the house. We can say that it's a black horse. And so that way for the students that want more objects or more concrete, they can talk about that, and then we can continue to advance the students that want more information.
Do the parents have any questions about language?
I was just going to stop you and ask that. You can either unmute yourself, guys, or you can put something in the chat box. I don't think at this moment. What's
Okay.
coming next?
We're going to do math next.
Math?
Yeah.
Can you really make sure, and maybe Miss Roshi even needs to hold the camera or something, so if you're showing, because the math work is pretty intricate.
Okay, so we start out with, in the math area, giving them concrete objects to count. We have coins, we have teddy bears, cubes, rocks, anything that's concrete for them to hold with their hand and figure out the concept. And then of course, the familiar different colors of beads they can also use for counting. We have all of them from 1 to 9.
So the math material continues on in the elementary. These are materials that the children are already familiar, and from the 3 to 6 program all the way up to the 12-year-olds will use the exact same material, but they are used for different purposes. So if Sammy and Chloe have been with us forever and they already know this material, what they're using it would be not to make count or just to make teen numbers. They'll be using the same beads for squaring and for division and all different types of work.
Okay. And then a lot of this is familiar, like Ms. Roshi said. We have the teen board, which all of you have seen, just something, and then the addition strip board, which is a familiar work that you used when you were in the primary as well. And so then this is something that is somewhat unique. We get to use beads, and it's the addition snake game. So that might be something that they work on, where you're basically just adding the
Combinations of numbers.
the combinations of numbers. So you have the 10 bar every time you have 10, and then the different colors. And it's just a very interesting way for them to continue to understand the concept of addition, to work on it in a different format with the same idea.
Okay, so stopping again, sorry. So another question is, again, of course, if traditionally the kindergarten is in the 3-year program within the early childhood program, we've moved it to elementary because we feel that, the students actually can move forward maybe a little bit more quickly, not with pushing them, but just because their minds are ready for it and being able to move ahead. So we still have some of those, what parents might see or consider to be primary or early childhood works. But if the child has already mastered that in the primary classroom, they move forward very quickly, right? I mean, they move, not quickly, but just they move forward. And so can you tell us a little bit about the progression, like just even in the math? Once they've, mastered, I don't want to say addition because it goes on from one, just one digit, 6 plus 5 to, 27 plus, 35, things like that. But what is some of the progression so parents can know what that might look like? If my child's here right now, this might be the next piece. And then of course you're using the children that are in our classroom, that in your head where they're at. Where might children be moving next?
Okay, so ideally in math, you want to move from the concrete using the objects to abstract, where you are doing it completely on paper with no materials. So if the student has already mastered the addition with just 2 numbers or 1 number, then they would move on to 2 numbers, adding like 10 plus 12. So the progression depends on each step of the way. They need to do it at least 1 or 2 times independently on their own in their books. Then they move from doing it with materials to doing it on their own. And once they get to the point where they can do it on their own, and they could say it when they're getting up from sleeping, when they can say it at any point of the day, it's just very important that they move from the concrete to the abstract. And then, so this is the more familiar works that they had already had. And then after they get done with the addition, then they might move on to some multiplication, which they get to start using the red beads and the numbers on this beautiful multiplication board. Once again, they start out with it being very concrete with the different beads that you add to do the groups. And then after you decide, for example, you might start with times 1. So you put the 1 here. So you have this beautiful red circle. And so you would put this 1 times 2. So then the student would say 1 2. So we have 2 groups of 1. So then, as the student figures out it's 2 groups of 1, we would go to giving them the problems. And once they get done or they have mastered using it abstractly, then you could possibly start doing different practice games with other students. Once they figured out how to do it independently, then their skills with having mastered it in the elementary, it's very important that you show them as leaders in the classroom as well. So they might be ones that would lead a multiplication game of growing up. I had like Around the World or something where they're practicing and they're kind of being the leader. So that way they work on being independently able to do the material. And then once they master the multiplication, they might move on to some division, which is very similar, where you want to use the concrete materials of the beads as well as the counters that you would line up in the work. So I would say that you work on the material until you're able to master it. And after you've mastered it, the final step that I feel that the student should be able to do that would show us that you've mastered it is that you can teach another student the material. If you're able to teach another student how to do it, that is when I feel that you're ready to move on. There's a couple students in the classroom that they've mastered it, so therefore they're able to move on. And if a student's having any questions about like the division, I can say, okay, James, can you show them how to do the division on the board? And if I could hear him giving the same lesson, then I know that he has mastered it and that he's ready to move on. So if you're able to teach it after you've mastered it, then I feel that you're definitely able to move on. Am I answering your question, Ms. Sharon, or am
Oh, absolutely. I'm putting out questions like a parent might have a question.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm answering the questions that you might have. Okay, now Miss Roshi has this beautiful saying about multiplication facts. And all of the students by the end will probably have it ingrained in their head. Miss Roshi, would you like to talk about what you always say? You should be able to do multiplication facts in your sleep.
Oh, I tell them that you have to know your multiplication when you're picking your nose, when you're eating, when you're sitting in the toilet, and and when you're being nosy about other people all the time. If I just walk up to you and ask you how much is 3 times 5 off the top of your head, you need to know it, and you need to know it till the day you die. And one of the boys told me a couple of years ago, till the day I die, I need to know this. And I said, yep, you need to know it, but till the day you die.
And so with the multiplication facts being so important, each of the kids have a certain way that they like to do the work. So this one is for the student that just likes to have one problem at a time. Having a whole page at one time is too overwhelming. So they get to pick out 3 or 4 problems out of the drawers, and they're just divided up into addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So they need to just pull it out, and it's their job to write the problem. So that way, that's not so overwhelming for those students. Then, once you advance past that, you get to start writing more complex problems. So then they're working on doing 1 or 2 of these at a time. That way it's not, in each one of these, red is for addition, and then we have green for subtraction, and then it stays with the same color scheme of yellow for multiplication and blue for division. That way the students know that whatever card they have. And then after you've mastered doing just 1 or 2 problems, you start independently writing maybe 4 problems or a whole page. it depends on how the students are doing. If Miss Rocha and I see that the students are showing any signs of stress or that they're not able to complete it or any signs that they are pretty much done for now, that's when Miss Rocha and I might recommend doing a practical life work. Maybe they want to come back to this in the afternoon, or maybe they just are finished with this and we'll move on to another subject. That way they don't feel like they have to get it done right away. Very low stress, and we're trying to teach them the concepts. And then some of the beautiful work that I personally found to be extremely fun to work with are the beautiful beads that we now have for each of the different numbers. So you have all the way from
Tables. For the multiplication.
for multiplication for the checkerboard, from 1 all the way to 9. And this is familiar. However, now instead of putting them on the chain, they are going to physically be able to touch the different numbers. And then we have this beautiful checkerboard that the students get to work with and feel the beads on this beautiful cloth that is once again color coded so that units are green, tens are blue, and hundreds are red. So that way you know that if you're putting it in here, I'll give you an example. So that way you kind of, sometimes an example works the best for me. That way I visually know exactly what the student is doing. So for this, we're going to do a problem times 2. So we would have the student, we would have it written out, and we're going to do 3 units, 2 tens or 20, and then for the hundreds, 2 tens, so yeah, do this, 2 tens, and then 2 hundreds. So the students, and quite a few of even the students that are in the 5 and 6, they're already starting to do this. So then Ms. Rocha, I will say, okay, you have 2 groups of 3. So they will take
The
one, sorry, 3 groups of 2. Okay, so we have 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, and 3 groups of 2. So then they would leave that in their square, and then they would do the next part, 2 times 2, or 2 groups of 2, and put it into the blue for the tens, and then 2 groups of 2 again, and put it in here. And then their last step would be to combine them. So they would figure out 2 groups of 2 is the same as 4. And then they would put these away. So 2 groups of 2 is the same as 4. And then 3 groups of 2 is the same as 6. So while they're doing this, they could be counting them. But just for time, I just wanted to show you how concrete this material is, and that they are able to individually count each one of the beads as they're doing it. And then they would have a paper where they are writing down the number. So we would go and we would say 446 is 223 times 2. That way they have the concrete material. And then we're also making sure that when they are done, they are putting the material away exactly where they got it. So that way the next person will know exactly where it goes. Okay, so we'll put that away, but during the day we make sure that.
Guys, it's just so you know, time-wise, it's 6:12.
Okay, so we're almost done. We're at the very end of the math. So this is more advanced work, and I
You
don't,
can move it here so they can see that.
this is the more advanced work, like the,
That's decanomial beads, and that leads us to we use that a lot for squaring work also. This is stamp game, very popular. All 4 operations can be done with it. This is another variation of all the other materials that we have. Stamp games more, and then fractions. For a lot of kids, just to do fractions on paper is really difficult, but this is very, very visual, and they build muscle memory and thoroughly enjoy doing fractions, because the material is like makes the problems amazingly easy. It's all about visually solving the problem, and a lot of the time, even before they write it down, they already know the answer from just putting the material together. Then we have some other material for decimals and volume and cubing, and money work is a very popular thing, just because we have tons of little objects here, so it's really hard to keep the younger ones away from this work, because that seems to be the hot favorite thing. Just get together and chit chat about they call it the toys instead of actually wanting to do the work. So Miss Valerie and I constantly have to tell them that there is a purpose to the material other than just having a lot of fun with it.
Okay, and then this is one just to give the idea. We just have a clock, and they just get to work on the placement of the numbers. So that way they kind of get used to where the numbers are in the classroom and telling the time. And then one of the items that we just got, talking about the Roman numeral numbers as well. That way they also get used to recognizing some of those for the students that are interested. And then the last area that we have is the geometry area. We have the geometric cabinet, very similar to what you've had in the primary, but now we have more card material to work on the different concepts of geometry for the students, as well as this.
These are available in the primary or early childhood classroom also, and your child is very familiar with this, but that was used mostly for as a sensorial activity. Here we are going to use this for algebra. They are not going to originally realize that they are going to be doing algebra, but as they grow older and show more interest, they will be given the algebra concept of it also.
Very nice. And so this is another very popular use of the geometry and making the different shapes and angles. This is the box of sticks, and they get to work on putting them together and just exploring the different types of shapes that they have and the different angles. So this material is extremely popular and very concrete for them to understand the concepts that relate to the different shapes and angles and different concepts that we're working on during the geometry portion. And then, of course, we also have the geometric cabinet. And so with this, we're working quite a bit on counting by fives, a lot of concepts, the multiples of fives and tens in each of the different areas.
And learning squares of numbers, how to square a number we will be using this material.
Okay, and then this is where we keep our Friday folders that you'll get tomorrow. And then we are also working more on calendar, just having them be independent with knowing what day of the week it is. And then we also have a beautiful library that they could use when they are finished with some of their other work, as well as every morning they are working on reading with either myself or Miss Roshi, which is very important for them to continue and read at home as well. And this just kind of goes through like making sure they know most of their sight words that are age appropriate for their development and just working on their comprehension of what they're reading. So we have some different books that they go over on a regular basis every day, and as well as their spelling to practice with their familiar words to do so that they can do their writing and their reading and advance themselves. Oh, Miss Roshi wants to make sure I show everybody this beautiful area. We're very, very proud of this. This is a peaceful area, and this is a beautiful circle that has a candle in it. It's a light up candle. It doesn't have a real one. It's just a pretend candle. But in this, it is beautiful because it has a bunch of different cultures that are in this, and it's very peaceful for the kids to look at. And we just try getting a variety. So we have music on the bottom, something for them to look at and to talk about just having harmony and peacefulness. And then we have this beautiful spinning, just some peaceful music that they have. And then we also just got a new music box that students can use when they have finished up their work.
Sharon's helping us with the library.
And the library is a continuing project that each and every day the students are gravitating toward a different area in the library. So to me, I think that's a bonus because they are definitely diving in and trying to find new and exciting books to read. So that, of course, is a strong area that the kids show an interest in. So does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything?
Again, you can just unmute yourself, or you can put it into the chat box. I know if I was a parent, I might say, oh my gosh, that was very overwhelming. You guys did a great job, but that's a lot of different works at a lot of different levels. How do I know what to work on with my child at home? Because, you know, we have those parents, right? Children come to us for the purpose of Montessori. And so our parents are invested into also doing that. But as our parents, they're not Montessori certified. How do I help my child at home?
So
Where do I know they're working at?
You would work, something we would like you to do at home is read, read, and read. And that's the work that you can do at home. We will help them here with the math and the language and all that. However, if you do like to work with your child, you may come approach us and we could help you. We give you some tips instead of doing something completely different. Like I had a child who could not figure out the math that the dad was doing with the child at home. Then finally, and she was taking work home that was similar to what he was doing at home, but he couldn't understand why she was not doing it for him. So then when he came and told me that, I sat him down and I showed him how we were doing it at school. And then he said, oh, this makes so much more sense. And then the next day he came and said, it went by like within 15 minutes, everything was done. And usually I sit with her for about a whole hour. So it may be just the concept is different and you can actually draw it out for the child if you're working at home. So I highly recommend come see us and tell us what you're working or what you would like to work at home with so we can help you out.
And we're always willing to have you bring in, quite a few of you bring in things from nature. That way we can add that to the science area. But of course, be careful about too many live insects and so forth. But beautiful leaves, we've had people bring in seashells, clams, whatever the case is, whatever you can do that relates to them just going out and exploring nature and researching what they find, letting them lead you into what they want to do outside is my recommendation. And then that could lead them to write. Just let them lead you to whatever they're interested in and then encourage them to learn more if they're interested in like going out on the field. That's led to our beautiful sunflowers from Miss Roshi in the art area. And so she let the kids show her that they were interested in the flowers. And so just listen to your kids and see what they're interested in and feel free to let us know. I've had some parents come to me, but just let me know if they're talking to you a lot about different plants or if they're coming to you asking about the planets or they're coming to you and asking about certain topics. Feel free on Remind. Just send us a message so that we know that's a topic they're interested in. Any
These
other?
spelling words. Oh my gosh, you're sending spelling lists home. So I noticed what you said about the movable alphabet helps with their spelling of their weekly words. So how, oh, and Julie's saying she's loving the spelling list. How can I use a movable alphabet at home? How can I get that? I mean, I know how they can get it.
I would recommend, if you're not able to get a movable alphabet,
Take milk caps or something, and with a Sharpie write the letters in the milk caps, and or get some just cut out some circles and write the letters on the circles. That would be your homemade movable alphabet.
or magnetic letters. You can go to I've gone to Walmart for 88 cents. You can get the magnetic letters. Just
Or just
promoting
ask
it.
Miss Sharon and we can run you a copy off of the movable alphabet. Because
That
we
would
have
be
that
cool.
on the OneDrive. We have
Very
lots of the
nice.
works actually on the OneDrive, on our OneDrive at school. So I could actually print you where it would be on little tiny cards of the movable alphabet also.
Sounds great.
Who has questions? Let's see, there's. Helpful and love all the materials. So Julie says, thank you. Session has been very helpful and love all the materials set up, and both teachers are fantastic. Kim says, love this. We love the spelling list. Thank you. I think one of the biggest things that I want everyone to go away with too is that you all know Miss Valerie, Miss Roshi, and they're very, very knowledgeable. And we want you to continue to communicate. We know, we're in this, I don't know if I want to call it a season of COVID. It could be a year of COVID and more than one season. But that does not take away the kind of communication that we want to have. And especially at the elementary, I mean, it is okay if you let one of the teachers know, hey, after school today, I'd like to come in and see a couple of the works, or, let my child do a work with me so I can see what's going on. That is fine. We can do that because, we can just disinfect the work after you've used it. That's not a problem. And we don't want to shut out, especially our elementary parents, from knowing what's going on and really seeing, especially some of the more complicated works that they just can't have at home. And both teachers love to show the work. So I really want to make sure that you guys understand that we really want to keep that communication open with all of you and where your children are at and what they're working on. I mean, even though they should be able to tell you, it's okay to, chat with the teachers and ask what's going on. And then of course there'll be parent-teacher conferences coming up.
All these years I have in the classroom had an open door policy. You could just come in the morning and say, I'm going to hang out with my child today because I have the morning off and I want to see what he's doing or she's doing. And I'm not going to be doing anything different on the day you're coming. So you don't need to give me advance notice saying, oh, at this time, can I come on this day? But unfortunately now, because of all the health issues, we have to be a little more cautious, and it would be good if you would let us know. So we make sure that we don't have any other parent coming on the same day at the same time. But we would love to have you come do some work with your child. But talk to the child before you come that once you're done, you're going to be there for a specific time frame, that you have to get back to work or you have another chore or errand to run. So you can't hang out the whole day, because sometimes it's the younger friends usually that get very upset and, Mommy, can you stay? Daddy, I want to go home with you. So just have a conversation before you come in.
And because we use the outside area for work time in this morning, they could also just come in and be in the little courtyard area and do work too. They don't, even if they're feeling like, ooh, maybe I don't want to be inside with all the children, you could just stay outside in that little courtyard area and do the work outside also.
Yes.
That could be an alternative. Any questions? Maybe I can't see any faces. That's killing me. I have no, and it's fine. I don't mind, but it's like I'm a facial person, so I can tell. There's Kim. I can see, see you. Oh, thanks, guys. That was sweet of you. Just because then I can, just see like what you're. Sometimes I can read a face and go, they're thinking this. But we love you guys. We love your kids. I'm so glad that my office is right there, and that they can come and say hi to me and show me their work, and I can see what's going on all the time. It literally brings so much joy to my day. So I really want you to know that. And it's exciting when I just walk up the stairs and they're like, Miss Sharon, and I'm just like, oh, you guys are great. And they just want to show me all of a sudden everything they've done all day. So, well, like I said, you guys, thank you for coming tonight. This is recorded. It will go up on YouTube. I'm not sure if Amy she'll probably do it tomorrow. And then you can go back and look at it. You can also, guys, one of the other things that you can do as parents, just to help us out a little, is to tell your friends they could subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please tell your friends they can like our Facebook page. Just little things like that. Because we are doing more lessons, and Miss Pam is filming all of these things, and they're all going to go onto the YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing some presentations of different things, just about La Bella Vita and just about potty. I know this isn't, you guys are way past that. Some of you still have smaller kids, but potty training and just why Montessori, all those things. So please invite your friends to also do that. That is one way that costs $0, but helps us a huge amount. So thanks again for coming, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Yep.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.